You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the preview show for the AFL SuperCoach Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. Those of you who are joining us will now know that we're an hour earlier. So this is a bit unusual for us, where for the only time for the year, we are conceding some ground to our NRL cousins. We know that the State of Origin is on tonight, so we thought it would be a good idea to bring the preview show forward. We'll do a bit of a shorter episode tonight, so we'll still cover all 9 games. We'll still give all of you legends the opportunity to interact with us. Send us your questions in the chat, and we'll pop them up, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. And we'll also do our world famous Cone of the Week. And depending on how that plays out, we haven't really decided who's going to do that yet. So we'll see how that goes a little bit later in the show. But we thought it would be good to come on a bit earlier, talk some AFL SuperCoach. No one wants to listen to those Channel 9 flogs talk about, how New South Wales are the best team ever in the history of the world and all this kind of rubbish. They'll just repeat themselves over and over again for an hour anyway. So join us, have a chat, talk to us about SuperCoach, and then we'll let you all go and watch the game. So with me tonight, again, for 2 nights in a row, Flanders, they've let us back into it, so we must have done okay last night. Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. It's either we did well or they're just really short on the bench. It's one of the two. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, we won't go down that path. You're probably right, but it's horses again out doing the under 16 national championships for the basketball, and in Bendigo doing some commentary. So giving the great man a bit of a rest, and calling us up to fill the void, and we do have to just send a shout out to our mate Squiddy. He's a staple on this preview show, but because we went a bit earlier, and Archer, this is a really bad time to try to get Squiddy onto his show, because Archer's bedtime's 8 o'clock, so they got all the feeding and all the other things that everyone knows would go with an infant. So Squiddy, shout out to you, buddy. Hope everything's going well. Hope Archer's doing great, mate. And we'll go along tonight without you, and we'll welcome you back next week, I'm sure. So, Flanders, this is your first preview show, I hear.
It is, yeah. No, I've done the review. I've done the numbers game. I have not done one of these before, though. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's what can I tell you to prepare you for tonight? It's probably I find the easiest of the shows, because we don't have to make up stuff. We just have to talk about the games. So it's all scripted for us, because there's 9 games that we've got to show. There's some really, really good games this weekend. Last week we were whinging and complaining because it was sort of top 9 versus bottom 9 for the round. So there wasn't too much to talk about. But tonight we've got some really good games, and some probably in between and poor games in there as well. So we'll get stuck in, shall we? Let's talk about our first game, and we got Carlton versus Brisbane Thursday night at at Marvel Stadium. Actually, I had to look this one up twice to think, hang on, why is it at Marvel? But it is at Marvel Stadium, 7:30 Thursday night. And kicking us off, finally, some great scheduling. I love it when Carlton play the first game of the weekend. It just sets up the weekend beautifully. It's we've got a whole weekend to talk about. Will Vossi get sacked, or will Curnow get traded, or what about Cripps? Should he just take his 2 Brownlows and disappear, and all this fun stuff that the media come up with? So are we expecting the narrative to just continue for another week, do you think, Flanders?
I think if Brisbane want to take themselves seriously this year, and Carlton are in the shambles that they're in, I think this could well be 50, 60 plus the way it's going. It could just be an absolute piss take.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I do want to call out off the top, though, and this is something we're not often overly serious on this show, but when I saw the press conference today and Vossi up there, and he was pretty emotional, right? And it probably made me think about, I'm one of the biggest culprits of joking at Carlton's expense, really, and I've said this a million times, only because it helps me cope with my own crap team, and I don't feel as bad because Essendon have been just as tragic as Carlton have for the journey. But I think just a message out there to anyone who does listen to us: when we say anything in terms of players and SuperCoach, and we get frustrated at scores and all of that kind of stuff, we are doing it in jest. And please don't tag players or coaches or officials into your tweets or send them letters. That's the last thing we're asking our community to do. And I don't think anyone in our community would do that, but I thought it's worth just calling that out. It's one thing to have a bit of a joke on a podcast like this, but it's another thing to start sending messages to the individuals themselves who all have families like us and don't need that.
They're people. We can't forget that they are still people, and we need to show them the respect. And you're all entitled to your opinion, but you don't need to go out there and berate somebody. We all need to treat them with the respect that people deserve. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, who are we? Vossi's won 3 flags. He's won Brownlow medal. He's absolute superstar of the game, right? And we're sitting on our couch and want to send letters to him telling him he's no good or something. I mean, yeah, it sounds funny, but not when you get them involved personally and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I thought it would be worthwhile just chucking that in because I don't think anyone in our community is doing that. We have a lot of banter in the Insight community, but just in case anyone did get tempted one day to tag them in things, please don't. No. So this game, we're all expecting this to Brisbane are a better team. Clearly, it doesn't really. Even if Carlton play at their best, we would expect Brisbane to probably get the job done in this one. But what about from a SuperCoach perspective? Which primos are you thinking are going to have good weeks from a Brisbane point of view?
I'd be expecting the Suitcase to jump on board. I'd jump on the Suitcase train this week. He loves getting forward to centre. He loves having a ping at the goals. So I'd back him in. And he tends to, if this ends up being the blowout we're thinking it is, Jaden Papowski did a wonderful thing during the week. And if this ends up being 40 points at half time, the scaling's going to be kicking away from people and the back end of the game's not going to be as impactful as the start. So I think someone like a Hugh McCluggage, who likes to get on the board early, get a lot of early game possessions, could just be elite.
Yeah, well, it is a really good call out. Some of these games that do have, and we never know, it might not be a big margin early, but if it is, it is probably important that whoever you've got does get off to a hot start, because then it just keeps getting scaled and all that kind of stuff. So it is important. I don't mind even Zorko in this one. I think, I'm a Zorko owner, and he's frustrated the hell out of me for most of the year because he gets a bit more attention than he has in the past, etc. But I just don't know if Carlton have got the kind of matchup for him. So I think it might be one where I hopefully get a good score out of Zorko, the magnificent, who has been not so magnificent sometimes this year. So should be interesting. What about the other side of the spectrum now? We haven't seen TDK. I think is Pitnet still in? I think I haven't seen the teams. They did say the teams earlier.
I believe he is still in, because I have seen a quote from Vossi rolling around that does say that they're going to need TDK to do a roll forward.
Okay, yeah. So
he does.
If you're down,
he's listed on the bench.
If you're down low on trades, would you recommend people, even though we've maybe got 1 or 2 left for injuries, would you count TDK as a write-off and just say pretend it's an injury and get rid of him, or would you say, oh, well, a 60 is better than an injured bloke and hold? What do you reckon? I
think if you've got 2 trades or more, then I'd get him gone while he's still got some cash under him.
Yeah.
If you're down, if it would be your last trade, you still want to make sure you cover for injuries, because a 60 is better than a donut. But if you've got any form of luxury and you've still got him, I'd get him gone.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I traded him last week, and this is where it's a hard one for me to reconcile, because I used my second last trade on him, but then Caldwell got injured, so I'm using my last trade now this week. And then I often thought this week, should I have kept TDK? But I don't know. I mean, it already made me, I think, 45 or 50 point better off last week in overall score. Probably again this week's going to be the same. You're carrying a rookie when you're talking about TDK as a forward, as opposed to TDK as a solo ruck. So I think it is worthwhile trading him. And just a shout out here, Blue Ball has come up with Chincotta's back in. Sorry, I didn't see the teams for this before we jumped on. Going a bit earlier caught me out. But so maybe he does go to Zorko potentially, or maybe he goes to one of the mids. But he hasn't really been doing it overly well this year either. He tagged Butters with limited success. Probably Merritt's the last one he tagged with any great deal of success. Do you think Chincotta will have an impact, or?
I could see Chincotta having an impact potentially on a Lockie Neal. He has had that impact before. I could see a Lockie Neal tag coming in. As an owner, I'm not a big fan of that. And if that tag does happen, Neal is sort of happy to step a bit away from the contest and draw players out, draw Chincotta and maybe even somebody else from the Carlton midfield away from it, and back in Dunkley, back in all their half forwards, back in McCluggage. He's happy to back those guys in and draw the attention away with himself. So there is the opportunity there, but I wouldn't say it worked to great success to my memory at the start of the year from a scoreboard point of view. So they may just decide to go second time around. Let's just back it in and go from there.
Yeah, makes sense. Any VC loops for you in this one, Flanders?
If you've got McCluggage, I wouldn't mind that. I've got Dunkley and Neal, and I probably wouldn't be too keen on it. I think there's just far better games still to come. So I'm not going to have anything in this game.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those games as well where Hewitt might even try to play a bit more accountable on one of the midfielders, and so I'd probably give the VCs a bit of a wide berth too in this one. We all know that VCing on a Thursday night is my kryptonite, but I've only got Zorko in this game, and I'm not confident enough in him to VC him anyway, so I definitely won't be using it on this game. What about a tip in this one, mate? Are you Brisbane comfortably?
Yeah, Brisbane by 45.
Yeah, I'm thinking similar, 40 to 50, something like that. So let's move on to the second game, Gold Coast versus Collingwood. A blockbuster. This is fantastic. I think this is probably the game of the round. There's about 3 or 4 really good ones, but probably none better than this. Friday night, People's First Stadium, Gold Coast playing in a genuine blockbuster against the Pies or a red hot. You're the Gold Coast fan, mate. Talk me through what we're going to see here.
Oh, I'm so excited to see Gold Coast and blockbuster and game of the round written in. It's a night and day different for us. Like, we've had some crappy years, so it's good to see us written in that sort of light on a Friday night playing Collingwood. Like, okay, it'll be packed out, but probably because of Collingwood fans at People's First. But we can look past that. But yeah, this is going to be just a pure head-to-head matchup. These teams are just going to back themselves in. They know how they play, and they will play the way they want to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think both teams will back in their system. There should be plenty of opportunity for all of the guns to go really well. So I think it's one where I'm a little bit tempted to go VC on Nando's, and I've got Dacos as well, so I'm probably tossing up between those two. I think they're probably two options for the VC on a Friday night, I think. Are you VCing anyone here?
Yeah, I'm running Nick Dacos. I'm going to run a bit of Dacos. Gold Coast just don't care about accountability. They are happy to back a system in, and they do it week in, week out. And somebody always gets off the chain. As a Suns fan, it sucks to watch. But as a SuperCoach player, I love seeing my team come up and have a primo plan against them because somebody scores really, really well. So
love a little bit of feedback from the viewers, Flanders, and I noticed. Yeah, I was going to click on it to show you, and then you turned your mic up, or you got louder, or whatever it was. So I think that worked anyway. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think there's some good VC options here. I don't think you can go wrong with an ACOS or even a Raul or Nando's. Any of those guys are going to be good options. I think there'll be a really good ruck battle too in this one. So Witt's back, I assume, after having the week off last week managed. Him versus Cameron should be a really good head-to-head battle, and then there's just stars on every line. This is what we want to start seeing, right? There's been a lot of talk, and the media always go with the negative. A lot of talk about dead rubbers and should we have these mid-season bullshit tournaments and all this kind of crap because some of the games are crap. But what happens because we've now got 9 legitimate contenders all fighting for top 4, not just top 8, because they're not separated by much. Games like this are crackers. So the more really good games we've got over the next 2 months, the better, I reckon.
Oh, it's a lovely time of the year, and this time of the year can become quite boring, especially now. Like, I think between 9th to 10th is 2 games or something like that. I was seeing most, someone finishes 9th or 10th, who's finishing there. It's just working out basically who the top 8 is and how they structure up. Whereas I think I looked at it in like 4th to 9th is like percentage only or something like that. It's stupid.
Absolutely. And everyone's going, oh, well, it's going to be either GWS or Gold Coast or Freo that drop out. Like, there's nothing to say that even Hawthorn and the Western Bulldogs and these teams couldn't drop some of the games that we're not expecting. So I think it's wide open. I think, there's only 9 chances, but those 9 chances could finish in any order as well, other than maybe Collingwood right up the top or skipped clear. But it's going to be a good finish.
There's a game and a half between Brisbane in 2nd and Fremantle in 9th, and then there's 3 games back to Sydney.
Yeah.
Like, it's
love
nuts.
it. So,
bunch of teams on 40 points.
Are you tipping your boys to get the job done, do you think?
Yeah, Flag Suns. Well, back us in.
Back us in.
What are you, mate?
Look, Collingwood are always hard to beat, but I think they have to lose one at some point. I can't even remember the last game they lost. So, yeah, I'll back your boys to get the job done at home. I think they are due to probably make a stand, if that makes sense. Like, everyone's waiting for them in the back half of the year to go meekly like they have done in the past. And I think maybe this year they won't. So I reckon Gold Coast could get the job done, but we know the Pies are going to be hard to beat, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get into our... What's that?
What's next, mate?
Next up, Western Bulldogs versus Adelaide. Now, I don't know who's thanking the AFL more here, but the fixturing, we usually bag them a lot. Moving this from Mars Stadium in Ballarat to Marvel, those fans have got to be happy with that, don't they? Bloody hell. Imagine being Ballarat on Saturday in the freezing cold, the middle of winter, no stands, and then taking it from there, now going into a nice warm Marvel with a roof, no weather, for a cracking game of footy, because these are top 4 contenders. What do we think? Who's going to step up, do you reckon? This
is going to be an elite matchup, and the Western Bulldogs are going to have the midfield over them, but I think the Crows just their forward line and everything they produce forward to centre. I don't know if the Dogs have anything to stop that. You're going to have Thilthorpe, you're going to have Fogarty, you're going to have Walker, you're going to have I'm not going to have Rochelle sadly now, but you're going to have Rankin as well floating around up there. How are you going to man every one of those up? Because somebody is going off.
Yep. And we've seen that the Dogs offensively are as good as anyone, but defensively they have some worries. So this is a really, really fascinating matchup. Like, is it just a shootout? Do both teams just go, we're just going to go nuts, and could be a really high scoring game? Or because that's what everyone's expecting, does it just give up something completely different and they change the way they go? But I don't know if these two can be defensive. It's just not their nature.
No, if something I'd back in, Lockie Bramble responsibly, but I'd take the overs. I don't know what the line is, but take the overs. These guys are just shootout kings. They are like, I think Adelaide kicked 164 points against Essendon earlier in the year. They just push forward. They conceded 100 points, but they kicked 164. They just want to push it forward. And so do Western Bulldogs. They are very forward-focused teams.
Yeah. It's and I put up there Darcy versus Thilthorpe, and clearly they're not they're at the either end of the ground. It's not the matchup, but just watching what happens when the ball goes inside 50 with these two is really exciting. They probably do become the matchup as the second rucks for both teams, so that'll be interesting in itself. What's your prediction there? Is who wins the goal tally for this game out of those two?
I think Darcy will. Adelaide don't have a tall defender that's notable. They've got Mitch Hinge, they've got Mark Keane, but they don't have any big tall defender, and that's what you need against Sam Darcy. You're going to need that big tall guy because those arms will just go gadget out, and you're never going to get in front of it. So I think he's going to take the cake because Thilthorpe is going to have to compete probably with his own boys down the other end. Yeah,
and to his credit, Astronauts played a couple of cracking games in a row now. So Aaron Norton has copped a lot of flack over the journey as being, high potential, but not necessarily cutting it. And he's been hitting the scoreboard. I mean, the last 2 weeks, Darcy has had all of the hype, but probably Norton's been the one that's really been the focal point. So it becomes a bit more of a dangerous proposition when you've got two of them, and then you've even got the big fella English running down occasionally, and then they got their usual they got midfield goal kickers, which I really love about the Bulldogs. So you can get Kennedy can kick some goals. You got Bont can kick a goal or two. You got Richards who's good for a goal or two. That's always a dangerous mix when you've got that.
It does, and when they're pushing forward a lot of midfielders that aren't like teams that don't have their goals come from their midfielders, you tend to know they're going to make a kick inside 50. If the midfield of Western Bulldogs are moving forward, they're just as likely to have a ping at goals themselves, and they're pretty accurate, all things considered, taking a ping, that you've got to actually have that defence on the 50 line. So, I think this could be pretty elite up there.
That'll be a good game. So I think I've got about, 6 players in this one. Probably, if I was having a guess, at least 5. Anything to worry about? Any tags coming my way? Do you reckon? What's sort of going to happen? I mean, Adelaide are probably Bulldogs don't really tag. Adelaide maybe put a little bit of time into some blokes occasionally, but it's not really hard tagging jobs, is it, for these two?
No, they avoid it. They back in their systems. They do have some guys that sort of run some accountability roles, but you don't have the typical hard tag. Neil Bullen does still exist. He's avoided that role all year. He has done it obviously when he was at Melbourne, but he has avoided that role all year. So I wouldn't be too stressed about that. You could find someone like a Matty Kennedy might play maybe an accountability role on Jordan Dawson or something like that. But I might expect 100, not 110, 120 instead. You're not going to find. I wouldn't expect us tagged out for 60 on this.
Nah, and this is the hard part, I guess, with when you've got so many. It is. There's only so many points to go around, right? So that's always the hard part. You either hope that if you've got 6 guys in this game, you either want 6 of them to go 100 or you want one of them to go 150 that you've got, so that it makes up for the bloke that does get you 70, because it's inevitable that someone's going to miss out if there's a few 150s in the game. So it is something to look out for. VCs in this, probably we won't talk Cs this early in the round, I wouldn't have thought, but any VC candidates, or was the Collingwood Suns game more of a VC kind of game?
Collingwood Suns is, I don't own any Suns. Like, I've got John Noble, which I wouldn't back in for that. I've got Nick Dacos, but that's about it. For anyone who wants to go a bit potty, you could look at, and you've got an Ed Richards, or you've got a Bont. Most people aren't going to have anything on either of those two this round, so you do have a bit of a pop there in a reasonably safe round. If you're sitting just outside the top 1K or whatever, and you want to have a ping to try and move yourself up the ranks a bit, Bont's due. If nothing else,
I think that's a really good shout, and especially given that there is going to be some popular VCs on Friday night. Probably not so much. There might be some on Thursday that go the Brisbane team. It's worth keeping an eye on SuperCoach Gold and just seeing, what the top 1% and 5% are doing with their VCs. And if you want to be a little different, I mean, you might get Bont as a bit of a pottish vice captain. That's ideal, given we know he loves Marvel, even though this could be a tough game, and we don't necessarily think it's going to be a walk in the park for the Dogs or anything. Doesn't mean that Bont can't score 140 or 150. So it is something just to look out for. And I mean, there's anytime you could get a guy as good as Bont as a bit of a pottish VC, you've got to put a bit of time and thought into that.
Yeah, Bont's currently sitting in the top 10%, 24.6. Dacos at 26%. So. Yeah.
So there you go. Who's winning?
I'm going to back the Crows in. I reckon the Crows are going to play well in this. But
I love that. I want to pick them too. I really rate them. Everyone in the media seems to be really hot on the Bulldogs at the moment as that team most likely to get into 4th. And I think they'll change their tune real quick if Adelaide can knock them off on Saturday. I think if Adelaide can get the job done against the Dogs here, it's their spot to lose then in that top four. So I'll give them a big chance, I reckon.
Adelaide gave us a very, very good run for our money and probably should have won the game up in Gold Coast. And, if we're considering ourselves a final side and they, like, people's first for us is a pretty big lock and they probably should have won that game, there's no reason they can't play away from home at Marvel.
Yep, absolutely. All right, before we get to the next game, Broads, we'll just give a shout out to our day one sponsors. So the Standard Squeeze, if you are looking for something to keep your drinks warm or cold, the Standard Squeeze are fantastic. The 4-in-1 is absolutely brilliant. You can use it for a coffee. You can also use it for a cold beverage. So it is a really good product. Jump to their website, the Standard Squeeze, and use the code IFS 2025 and you'll get 15% off your order. So definitely worth doing. If you haven't got yourself one of their 4-in-1s yet, jump on the website, get one. It's a bloody good product. I got one about 3-4 weeks ago and love. I'm not a cold beer drinker, but I love putting my coffee in there and it keeps it nice and warm. And I know Squiddy, when he's on here, he'd go to the other end. He uses his for the cold beverages. So it's great for both.
Perfect. What's next?
Let's get into the next game. GWS Geelong, another cracker here. So we've got a real feast. Probably 3 of the first 4 games are just really shaping the top 8 here. So GWS versus Geelong at NG Stadium. Sydney looks like it's going to be okay weather, I think I saw. So we can never really trust Sydney weather, but at the moment it looks like it might be okay. It was a shootout when they played earlier in the year, and GWS have an absolute cracking record against the Cats. They beat them down there. I think this was the game that it might have been Hogan kicked 7, I want to say, from memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was just a real big shootout. Or do we think the same thing will happen, or was that maybe just a once-off and both teams, now that it's closer to finals, might tighten up a bit more and be a little bit more sort of strategic?
No, they've both become very run-heavy teams. They like to get the ball in movement and transition, which means a lot of their forward lines tend to be pretty emptied. So you do get a lot of leading lanes. You do get a lot of hit-up guys. So, if GWS are transitioning down one end, they'll use, the tsunami to transition down one end. If the ball turns back over, you're going to find that Smith and Holmes that are going to run just as hard as they can. And you're going to have Manor, Myers, etc. down the other end, just looking for spot-up kicks. Shannon Neal, Jeremy Cameron, they're going to have very open forward lines down there. And the same at the other end for Cadman, for Cal Brown, for Hogan as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games that we tend to think of Geelong as a team that do have potential to tag 2 or 3 blokes. They can send Atkins to maybe a Tom Green. They could possibly go O'Connor with one of the others, maybe a Callahan or something, or even an Ocean Mullen on a runner like a Callahan. And then we've got at the other end, Bedford could go to someone, but it tends to still be pretty open in these two. So even with those tags, we expect the ball to slingshot a fair bit. They've both got so many options that it tends to play out as a really good, attractive game of footy. So hopefully that continues and we can get some good scoring. We've got the halfbacks with Whitfield coming back in this week, our mate Lockie Whitfield, Ash down there, and then you've got Tom Green, who we've been massive on for the last few weeks in the midfield. And then the Cats, you got we hope that Baz is back after his Cotton On party and he's fully recovered from his sleep, and we can get the Dash brothers going, and it should just be a high scoring SuperCoach game as well, not just game of footy. So do you expect that, or do you expect some of these tags to have an influence?
No, I expect this to be a nice free-flowing game. I suppose the good part about a lot of these teams, like these guys particularly, is unlike, say, a Gold Coast and a Collingwood game, you do find more. These guys tend to have their big scoring guys, and then they tend to fall off pretty hard towards the bottom 16, like the bottom 8, 10 of the side. Those guys score, 30s, 40s, 50s. They don't have, most guys in the 50s or 60s, which gives both these teams big ceilings for both, Whitfield, Ash, Tom Green, Finn Callaghan. Then you're going to have, Baz, you're going to have Jeremy Cameron, you're going to have Holmes at the other end. They can lead their big guys, be the big guys, and rack up all the touches as well.
I think this is a really fascinating thing that, and you are the numbers man. You're all over this. So I'm going to set a little project for you, not yet, but at the end of the year, when we get through the end and we start to look at some different lessons and some different things like that. Which teams are the ones that have the biggest sort of spread of SuperCoach points versus which ones are the ones that have, 2, 3, 4 massive scorers and then a long tail? Because I think that would be really helpful for our planning for next year. And like I said, you don't need to worry yet, but I think that would be some really fascinating data we could give to our Patreons in the lead up to our 2026 planning.
For sure. And I think Collingwood's a really good example. If you look at their team, I don't have it in front of me, but they're probably filled of 80s and 90s guys, your Crisps, your side bottoms, your Pendleburys, those sort of guys, Jeremy Howe. They're not guys you're picking classic. They're guys you'll love in draft, but they're guys you'll take in classic every day of the week. But it does limit the top-end talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about any VCs in this one, mate?
If I wasn't so scared of a tag, I'd love a bit of a Max Holmes getting a run along here, but again, there is still one juicier matchup that I am planting the sea on.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that we've been talking about. We think this could be, a great one for high scores, but I'm a bit the same. I'm a bit reluctant to go a VC on anyone because I've got Whitfield, I've got Baz, and they could run a mark, especially Baz. Like if they don't send snooze to him and they send him to Holmes, Baz could get off the chain. But I'm just worried that if they go the other way or one gets off the chain early, then they switch. It's just one that I might just let through to the keeper and see what happens. I don't know.
Can Snooze even keep up? That's a big problem. Like, is he going to be able to run? Baz runs his guts out, and Holmes is very similar. Baz runs a lot of straight line stuff, whereas Holmes gets the open side and sort of cruise 85, 90% down the opposite side wing. Baz will just run his gut on the edge of the square. But Snooze isn't going to be able to keep up. I don't think so.
I think you're right. It's one of those ones that we probably overanalyze some things a few times, don't we, in SuperCoach, and maybe we should just go with it. But I think there's a safe captain at the end of the round, and so I probably won't VC here anyway. Who wins, do you think? The Giants get them twice?
I want them to. If not, I don't know if they will. But I want them to. I want to.
I think the whole world does. We're sick of Geelong being good, aren't we?
Have they heard of the word rebuild?
Except for our man Azza in the community is a Geelong fan. I don't know one other person who wants Geelong to win this game. But anyway,
they're the AFL equivalent of the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
I hope the Giants get this one done too. Not only because of the fact Geelong are always good. That's good on them. So that's their luck. More because I think the more you get these, Giants in the bottom half of the 8 beating Cats in the top half of the 8, it just compresses it even further, and it makes some of the games later on even more juicy. So let's cheer for the story in this one and hope that the Giants can get it done and make some of those games later even more interesting.
Go the umpires. What do we got next, mate?
Go the umpires. Yeah, let's not do that. Oh, we go from 3 cracking games in a row to, unfortunately, my boys against the Tigers. And I had a quick look today. There's 26 combined on the injury list. So this is going to be a hard watch, isn't it? Like there's just too many players that aren't out there for both teams. We know they're both in rebuilds, and then not only are they in rebuilds, but the players that they do have that are somewhat talented are injured. So it's just going to be one of those games, surely.
It is. I was at the game for this earlier in the year. I went to Dreamtime at the G, and I wouldn't say it was the most skillful game of football I've watched in my career. But they're rebuilding, and I suppose credit to the Tigers. There's one thing I do like that they did. They just have committed to the bit. In NBA terms, they did just bottom out. They just accepted
Yep.
their fate. Don't try to hold back from it. Just accept it, bottom out. And I think the Dons either need to commit to the bottom out or, just work their way back up and commit to what they've got. But they need to go one way or the other, but not both.
Yeah, I think that's been Essendon's problem for many years, and we won't make this too long a rant, but middle of the pack doesn't do anything for you. So you are better off being down the bottom. And this year we're lucky enough that we do hold Melbourne's pick as well. So we're cheering for Melbourne to get beaten every week, because it looks as though they're probably going to be picks at around 5 and 6, roughly, give or take, depending on where they finish. So yeah, that's really the best part about this. And just a shout out here, Hawksy, agree here that Smarty's in. So another debutant for the Bombers. So it's great to see these mid-season draft guys get a crack. So Oscar Smart was in
the most in a year?
I think 13 is the record. I could be wrong, but I think 13 is the most ever, and this is our 12th. There's still another couple that we could debut in the coming weeks. You never know. But I love seeing this, that Oscar Smart is getting a game. He's been in Essendon's VFL system for a couple of years. I don't know much about him. He's a small forward, pretty aggressive, apparently. A little bit raw, maybe not necessarily the finished product already yet, but to give him a game on a big stage like this is a great opportunity. And whether it's someone like Gresham makes way or Perkins or Hobbs, like this, you're better off playing these young blokes and seeing what they've got rather than those guys that we know are not it. So I love to see these debutants get a run. So hopefully he can do well on Saturday night. We won't labour too much more on this game, mate, but Merritt or Martin or both, who would you pick if you were picking one this week? Because it's a very real question for many who are trading out of the injured Caldwell. They could go to either of these blokes. Would you pick one of them?
If you're playing for 1 week, I'd back Martin. If you're playing for both weeks, if you're playing for the rest of the year, I'd back in Merritt. Martin the problem is he can be thrown around, and he's probably the best comparison I've had for him over a lot of the time is he's a James Sicily. When he's in the right role, he scores really, really well. But the problem is he plays all the roles really well. So they can move him around, and he can spike really high in SuperCoach, and he can give you the 140s, 150s, 160s on a consistent basis. But if they shift him out of that role, if they move him off half back and then move him to a wing, well, he goes to crap. If they then move him into centre bouts and he's centre bouts moving the ball into the forward line, that's great as long as there's a forward line for him to kick to. He's got to make sure he's in that right role, and he's absolutely busy.
Yeah, and I think this week, I think they'll both score really well. Merritt loves playing Richmond. He's a really safe VC if you've got him. He feasts on teams that don't have a tagger. And, like you said, you would expect Essendon will get enough ball inside 50 with enough forward targets, because Richmond don't have the big defenders either to be able to be effective in these roles. I think the other point just to make on these, if you are going there, Essendon's tough run home. The last 4 rounds is pretty tough. Sydney in round 21's ugly because of taggers. I'm probably not going Merritt, but I am considering Martin. The only reason I'm doing that is his defensive forward status. I don't know if I'm going either, but that's just what is in my mind. If I did go one, it would probably be Martin. And it's only because he can cover 2 lines for me if I pick him up, and I've got no trades in the bank. So that would be some of the rationale. But I think there are other options as well that you could easily consider for those trades. So, I've already said VC Merritt if you got him. Anyone else you would think in this game, mate?
I'm going to see Merritt this week, so VC Dacos in the Merritt.
Okay.
The big thing, if you were to do it, you want to back somebody in for the Bombers. Something interesting that I just pulled up. Essendon for the year averaged 383 disposals, the most in the AFL. Richmond averaged 334, the second least in the AFL. So there's a massive disposal discrepancy here. There's every chance that Zach Merritt racks up 40.
There is. I think the only little question mark I have on it, and this was mentioned in the media during the week, and Damien Hardwick actually put it on the agenda in a bit of a backhanded compliment. Essendon did change their style a bit after, like last week after the bye, and is that the way they want to start playing for the back half, like where they're not as chipping around sideways in the back half, possessing the footy to defend and maybe moving the ball a bit quicker. Now, I don't know if that will hold up every week. It's one game sample size, so it's hard to know. But if Merritt is in the centre bounces, which we would expect with Parrish and Caldwell both out, and Essendon are moving the ball directly, that doesn't impact his scoring, but it might impact the halfback flankers getting all these cheap touches. So I think it's just something to watch for. Hopefully our disposal is a bit better, but I think it should still help those two guys in particular because they are the ones we want with the ball in hand kicking inside 50. Bombers get the job done, do you think, or do the Tigers sort of get a sniff of blood and get a win?
No, I'll admit defeat here. I will be supporting the Bombers this week.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I
think they get
the IFS cult for that, and I'll be supporting them. I'll join you.
I think they get the job done too. Another cracker. So 3 out of 4 games we've just spoken about look really good on paper. Freo versus Hawthorn. The old-fashioned 8-pointer. I hate that saying because it's a crock, but it is one team wins and one team loses clearly. And for the Dockers, this is desperation. I think they are the most vulnerable probably in the 9 teams that are in that mix. And if they lose this one, they just lose a little bit of ground if GWS happen to get over the Cats. So what do we think? Will these primos for Freo bounce back for people who were disappointed last week?
I hope so. Aaron's wrong. You better bounce back, or he might be bouncing out of the team. Connor Nash is probably the only thing I want to watch on. Other than that, I think they're both back in their systems. They both got elite midfields. Wardy's gone into Hawks midfield there. They're getting a lot of youth through there as well. Obviously, with Will Day out for most of the year, I think he's expected back into the year. But Newcomb, he's not known for being the most accountable guy. I think they're just both going to want to, back in their midfield structures at least.
Yeah. And I think Freo back at home, these are the kind of games that they should have better than 50% chance of winning, right? Like if you want to be in the mix with the top 8 teams, then home games against any of the others you shouldn't be fearing. Like, yes, it'll be tough. Hawthorn are a good side, but you've got to be winning these at home if you want to be a real contender. If you're a Freo, so I think they could bounce back here. I think Sarong seems to be the vulnerable one. Like the Tigers are still going to him, even though Brayshaw's been quiet. They know that if they get Sarong, that's the clearance game, and I think the reason that teams doing that so much is with Hayden Young missing. It really does expose their clearance work if they can stop Sarong. So we'll see if Nash or someone does go to him. But I do expect a bounce back for the others. Jordan Clark, I think, is a good play this week. Hawthorn, I don't think they care so much for those back flankers. Whereas the midfielder, they might try to clamp a little bit.
I wouldn't say Jack Ginnivan or Nick the Wizard Watson are the most accountable forwards.
No, unless you see a radical selection like a Finn McGuinness, which they haven't gone that way for ages now. But if you saw that in on Thursday night's teams, when join us on the Panic Room, and you do see that name, then maybe I'll change my tune on that. But otherwise, I think Clark will be okay. Probably getting to the point now where it's C options more than VCs. But what are we thinking? Anyone here?
There's no one I really love, to be honest. If Jackson goes sole ruck, then you could have a bit of interest there for me. Brayshaw seems to be avoiding the tag, and if so, I don't think Nash can run with him. But that would be probably the only 2 guys, and Hawthorn just is the least interesting team for SuperCoach this year.
Yeah.
How about yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you own Jackson and you saw for some reason that Darcy wasn't playing, you can VC or see him every time. But with Darcy in the team, even though he still plays in the centre bounces a lot, I'd still be a little reluctant because I think the ceiling is dropped just a little bit. So I probably won't be seeing anyone here. I have Brayshaw. I don't have the other Freo guys. I think if I was taking a punt, though, as I've already said, Jordan Clark would be the one I expect to go okay this week. And by extension of that, Luke Ryan probably as well.
Yeah. The other part is Jackson's not going to get away with what he has forward previously. He's sort of gotten away with a few easy matchups forward. Most other teams haven't had that big tall defender. We're talking Tom Barras and Josh Battle forward, like in defense. He's not going to get away with the same gig he has in some previous weeks. So don't back him in for too many goals in that aspect, because he will be held more accountable.
Agree. No,
but I will be watching this game over the Essendon game.
Well, I would love to. I mean, I'll be watching the Essendon game, obviously, because I'm an Essendon tragic, but this will be a much more entertaining game of footy, I would imagine. I wish there wasn't a clash. I wish that Essendon were clashing with one of the rubbish games that's coming that we're about to talk about on Sunday, because we've got 3 games that are of insignificance, really, on Sunday, whereas this game would be a good one to watch. But anyway, I'll go the Dockers, though, at home. What about you?
Yep. I'm going to tip the upset. I reckon the Hawks will put up a good fight here.
Yeah, I think it's a toss of the coin game, so I wouldn't argue against it. Let's get through the 3 games on Sunday a little bit quickly. Melbourne versus North Melbourne. These are all teams outside the 8 now in these games. I think they'll both fancy their chances of getting a win, though, here. This is, when you're in the positions on the ladder like these teams, these become really important games. So the ruck battle's probably the most interesting. We spoke a lot about that last night. Are you expecting anything in particular from a one dominant scorer point of view, or will they both go well? Big Maxi and big Tristan Sherry? Yeah,
I'd expect pretty good scores out of both of them. I couldn't see a 150 plus obviously coming out of either of these guys. But I think it's going to be a pretty good game. It'll be a really good ruck battle. If nothing else, I'm taking out the SuperCoach side of it. I'll be very keen to see the old man Gorn versus the new man Sherry go up against each other, because I will say Sherry seems to look like he's doing what Gorn does, just a bit younger. So it'd be changing at the guard a little bit, I think.
No, I think that's true. I think if there was to be a big score, I think Sherry's more likely. I think if the game was wet and contested and there's a lot of stoppages, his tackles are up, I think he could be the one that could get a huge score. But I tend to agree with you. They probably they each nullify bits and pieces of each other's game, and so maybe it's 110 each or something like that, which I think as owners of both, we've been talking about the combos for a little while on these pods. You take 220 out of the 2 of them, really, even though deep down we really would love 290. You can't be too greedy sometimes with this one.
I'll take a 110 average every day of the week. I paid too much for Max, but I'll still take a 110 between my 2 across my ruck line. It's safe. It'll keep me in leagues. Yeah,
agree. What about these? There's a lot of popular players here. Some underwhelming, scoring under par, but we're stuck with them, like Little Helmet, and Sheasel's been a bit frustrating. McKercher in the backline. Track, we've spoken about, looks a bit disinterested. Do we think any of these guys get decent scores, or are they going to continue to be that 70 to 90 kind of range?
Sheasel is on his last warning with me this week, and I'll make that very nice and clear here. LDU was concussed. He will be out. There will be no other key name midfielder floating around here. If you can't take over that midfield and prove that you are the guy that you think, the guy for the midfield that you are going to be moving forward, this is your chance to step up. You will run that midfield now. Luke Parker will be the experienced head, but you will be the midfielder. He needs to do something.
Yeah, and I think he can if he's given 75% CBAs. The problem with Sheasel's been a lot of the games that he's moved in the second half of this year, where he's moved to the other end, he's been half forward flank for too long. Like, there's nothing wrong with half forward flanks changing on the ball, but we need him to have 50, 60, 70% CBAs, because we know he can win the footy if he's in there. So let's hope Clarko does that, and let's hope we've seen a few people saying that the report maybe looks all right for Sunday, so that might even help the Little Helmet and Kirch in the back line with some little dinky chips and stuff like that, giving us some seagull points back there.
Yeah, good thing for owners of Shees, which is most of us. He had no CBAs quarter 1. Obviously, LDU got subbed out at quarter time off the top of my head there. He then went 80%, 70%, 71%. So he went about 73, 74% for the rest of the game. So he should be in for a high CBA game this week. But this is proving time. If not, I think I'll be happy to fade him.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, good. So C options, or we're avoiding C's in this one?
I'd avoid the C. This is just going to be a crap game in general. I'll watch it, but it'll be crap. How about yourself?
Fair enough. Nah, no C for me. Definitely not. Not when the last game has someone so safe. I don't think I'm gonna worry about that. So, who wins?
Back in the ruse. Back in the ruse.
I'm death riding Melbourne every game, so I'm on the Roos bandwagon with our mate Squiddy this week too. I want our draft pick to be the best it can be, so definitely against the Demons. Even though I think they've got a couple of bloody soft kills in the next few weeks, which doesn't thrill me that Melbourne might win some games. But yeah, no, I'll go for the Roos as well. Second last game, mate. We'll try to wrap through these last two and then get into some questions from the gang. This game's just one of those ones that could be one of the tactical, ugly kind of games. These coaches are renowned for it. I mean, I shouldn't say that about Cox. He's only coached, 12 games of footy or whatever, but he's taken on a little bit from Longmire, and they play very much countable, tagging kind of players and all that kind of stuff. And we know that Ross loves to be a bit of a super coach killer. What do we think might happen here?
I reckon a whole lot of nothing. I don't reckon much is going to go on in this game. I reckon it's just, I don't even want to open the app to see the scores as this game kicks on. Nass's work rate is going to be what works him over for Jordan, because if Jordan's forward of the ball, he's not going to want to push up on a rebounder. He's going to want to be the forward that he's trying to be in his future now. And Windy probably he's been playing a bit of wing, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to let him run a true wing role, but also do a bit of a job on Errol, because Errol's been the biggest guy that's influenced their swing in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's a good call because Windy hasn't been tagging, but he has been playing the wing role, which is where Errol almost starts. And look who's joined us for the last 15 minutes. I think I don't know if this is a sign that we've got to wrap up by the time a State of Origin starts. So Horse is just making sure we finish, or what's going on here. But
that's it.
How was the basketball?
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's been awesome. So for those that are watching that don't know, I got the call up on Monday to commentate the National Basketball Tournament that is in Bendigo this week. Sorry. So been doing that, starting at 9, finishing at 7, 8 o'clock each night, and 3 more days. I've got the grand final Sunday. So yeah, it's been grouse, but how good's footy? And why do we have to talk about these teams? Can we just talk about Essendon the whole time?
You missed there's 4 good games this week, 4 cracking games. I shouldn't say good games, 4 absolute crackers this week, and you missed them all, Horse. You've come in for the rubbish games at the end that we're left with. This one could be one of the most boring games we've ever seen. But having said that, I think there are some tag options and some C options. So what do we think? Who's going to get tagged in this one?
I reckon it's going to be Errol for me. I reckon he's going to get a bit of a run with. What about you, Horse? What are you thinking? Who's getting run with?
Yeah, I reckon Errol. Yeah, I think Windhager goes to Errol, and then James Jordan. He's done inside jobs, he's done outside jobs. Is he going to go to Nass or
Sinclair? I reckon.
You reckon Sinclair? Sinclair hasn't been damaging with the ball in the last 3 weeks, though. He's been still getting the ball, but he hasn't been that damaging. So do Sydney just go, all right, we need to go to the source of everything that's damaging for St Kilda and put a stop to Nass? I hope not, being an owner in many leagues, but
I think we need to put a shout out to our great man in the community, our Swans man, Phil. So Phil, I'm not sure if you're listening to this podcast, mate, but if you are, and even if you're not, we'll maybe put a little note in our WhatsApp chat. What do you think they'll do with Nass? Do you think it'll be a Jordan? Do you think it'll be a Braden Campbell who's done the jobs on some of those kinds in the last couple of weeks? You're going to need a gut. You're going to need a gut runner. You're going to need maybe multiple things. Do they do they try to tag Nass? I think it's probably something they'll be. I mean, match committee will be talking about it all week, right? But let's see what Coxie does.
Interesting calls for sure.
Yeah. What about captain options here?
If I've got the balls, I'd go Wang, but I don't have the balls for that. Grundy is an interesting one for any owners. There's not many of yours, but there is some.
Yeah, Grundy would be the only one I'd captain in this one.
Yeah, if you got Grundy, you have to try to take double the advantage of the pod bloke that nobody's got, right? So I think if I own Grundy, I would be until he scores otherwise, I'd be captaining him every week. I just think I'd try to double the advantage of my competitors. So I think unless he's playing Sherry, this game will be fine. Romo concedes plenty of points, so I'd be going him as captain if I had him.
Saints did beat the Swans at Marvel last year as well when the Swans were up and about. So I'm tipping the Saints in this one too.
Ooh, Flanders.
I'll back in the Swans.
Swans for this one. Oh,
you're on a roll. What are you, mate?
I'm gonna just look. Everyone knows I hate the Swans, so I'm gonna go the Saints too. I don't like the Swans, so why would I pick them if I can avoid it? If I can help it, and I can pick against Sydney and Carlton and Hawthorn and Bulldogs every week, who are my four most hated teams, I do. So I'll go with that, and I'll pick the Saints. Let's get into the last game before we finish off for the weekend, and that is Port Adelaide versus West Coast. Again, another one that's a bit meh to finish the round off. Is this one that Port just get the job done? They take advantage of a travelling West Coast here. What do we think?
Yeah, they've got to. It's got to be a big win. They've got to put emphasis on it, put a big exclamation mark on it, and show that they are the real deal. And I think every team that plays West Coast has to do that this year. If you are the real deal, you've got to prove. And I think West Coast haven't been a team that's put up a fight this year. Richmond have put up some good fights this year, and at least shown a bit of heart and a bit of guts. West Coast just seem like they're just getting out there, getting some games into the boys, and we'll reassess next year. So I think Port have to really have a big win here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Horse, what do you think?
I think when Richmond played Port Adelaide earlier in the year at Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide just absolutely wiped the floor with them, and I think it must be, or it's not must be, I think it's going to be a bit of the same in that I think Port are just going to be too good, and just their forward pressure and the way they move the ball, it's going to be too much for West Coast.
Yeah. I think let's not worry about the Butters, Rosie, Bergman. I think they're all safe. But what does Pickles rock up? Tell owners out there that have Pickles that he's surely going to do something in this game. We saw him picking on little kids in a video this week, and maybe sees West Coast like the little under 10s that he can push around and dominate. Is that what's going to happen?
He was arguing a score review in Auskick. Come on, mate, get off it. It's Auskick. Give him a break.
He's a flog.
I'd love to say he's just competitive, but that's complimenting competitive people. He's got to show up. If he's forward, he's going to have the ball down there, left, right, and center. If he's midfield, they're going to have first service, and they're going to be able to have plenty of run through there. I reckon now they will give him some run through that midfield. He's come back from his hamstring. He's got some game time under himself now. Surely he's got to step into it.
You would hope so. I'll tell you what I want to see in this one. I want to see Harley Reid smash him. I'd love to see Harley Reid just go at him and say, hey, you're a year ahead of me or whatever it was, but I'm going to be the best in the comp, not you, mate, and I'm going to dominate you. I think that would be brilliant to see.
Yep. McCarthy, what's your thoughts? Is he going to come back? I say bounce back like a 99K guy's got to give me hundreds every week. Is he going to bounce back?
Yeah, that's what we're expecting. Look, I think this is a really good watch for people because everyone's got him in flex, or not everyone. Some people have 23 plus McCarthy, and I think it's been a really fascinating watch, even to see the community in discussions last week about, do I put McCarthy on field? Do I put McCarthy off field? If they had 23 plus McCarthy, they didn't know what to do with him, and so those who have McCarthy as 23rd, they don't have that luxury. They just play him. And so while McCarthy's getting 90s, I think it's a huge win for those of us who have only got 22 primos. But if he starts getting 70s, those who have got him as 24th, they start having huge advantage on the rest of the competition. So this becomes a really interesting watch for the run home, I reckon. What do you think he's going to produce?
Horse, your thoughts?
McCarthy, solid 90s for the run home. But I like the big three, and it's not even Pickles I'm talking about. It's Butters, Rosé, and Bergman for Port Adelaide. I'm a massive fan of Bergman and the way he doesn't get a lot of the ball, but just the way how conducive nice Supercoach scoring is to his game. I think he's someone that I would probably encourage people to look at bring in this weekend for the rest of the year, because what is it, his last 5 games? No, last 6 games he's turned up 5 times. And the only time he didn't do any good is when he was crook and he told Isaac Heaney that he was crook. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of his game. Love it.
Yeah. I'm very tempted to bring him in as my Caldwell replacement. I haven't made that final call yet. I'm probably
DPP
watching
as well.
Yeah, I'm probably watching Ed Richards' score before I make my final decision, because if Richards scores 100 or less, he becomes affordable next week, and I'll probably not trade Caldwell this week, and I'll just wait for Richards. But if Richards goes 110 and I can't afford him, I think it's then a bit of a toss up for me between Nick Martin and Miles Bergman, both with DPPs. So I'll see which way I go. That's going to do us for our games. I assume we're all picking Port Adelaide in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll end the games there. And what we might do, we've got about 5 to 10 minutes before State of Origin kicks off. So let's get into some questions, hey?
Let's go.
It's question time. Let's answer your questions for the week ahead.
All right. So let's start us off with some questions here. Where am I?
I love this, Hurls. I get to sit back and relax while you sort all this out.
I know. If I knew what I was doing, I'd love it too. But
there you go. I'll sort it out, mate. Great to see you boys. While I'm waiting for my operation in the next hour, I should fill in the time well. Strummy, best of luck, mate. Hopefully it all goes well. And Flagdons.
That was at the start of the stream, so I have no doubt he is not listening at all. He is enjoying.
No, he messaged me saying it was delayed a little bit. So.
Oh, sick, cool. Good to see you, Strummy. Great to know you're here, mate.
Yeah.
All the best, mate. Shout out to you. Hopefully it all goes perfectly, mate.
Who is the best option, Whitfield, McRae, or Brian Myers for the run home? What is the best strategy for forward cover on the run home as well? I reckon with that one, hit us up inside the Patreon, mate, and we'll sort you out with what is best for your team. Mate, me again. Have Caldwell. Well, you won't after this week because he's no good. 4 trades, heaps of money to spend. Get Brayshaw or Richards next week, playing McCarthy for 1 week. I like that. I think you can afford to wait on both Hurls there.
Yeah. We pulled out a few blokes last night. I think there's Brayshaw, there's Richards. There's about 5 or 6. Gorn's going to get cheap. So I think if you have McCarthy as your 23rd and Caldwell on the bench, wait a week. I think that's quite okay.
Great plan.
I really like Martin VC, but don't want to skip Dacos. That's fair.
Yeah. I think
VC,
if you've got
VC
both,
Dacos.
maybe you VC Dacos and C Martin. I think that's a play too.
Frankie, I was forced to trade TDK last week. Yeah, good move, because Voss has come out and said this week that he's going to play a role up forward for Carlton. That's going to really hurt his Supercoach scoring. But you know what? Keep him forward. Get him into the high 400s for next year when he's ruck 1 at St Kilda, and we can bring him into our sides again. Baz certainly did have the sniffles. Absolutely, he did. Boys, under overs, Nick Martin, 40 touches against Richmond this week.
Under.
Over. You
Over.
run a mark.
I reckon it could be nearly a 50-touch game for Martin this week. Hawksy, I'd love to bring Martin in for this game as my last promo, but I think I'm going to pick McRae instead for the finals run. I think if you need max points this week, Martin's your man. But if you're looking ahead, St Kilda have probably one of the best, almost favourable Supercoach matchup runs this year. So I'd be picking your Wanganeen Maleras, your McRae's, or even your Tom Green or your Finn Callaghan, because GWS, as you pointed out last week, Hurls, they've got a really good run. Hawksy, Josh Ward going to be a good starting pick next year. This year too risky. I agree.
Right.
Deadly, what a waste of a horse appearance. fuck you. Brody, you're a lot better than this Deadly bloke.
That's all right. So someone's got to work the late shift.
At least your facial hair doesn't look like you've ripped your pubes and stuck into your face. Corey Blackledge, I'm considering looping Angus Clark versus McCarthy this week. Yeah, that's fair, mate. If you've got the opportunity to do it.
Yep.
Scorched Earth, you love the Swans and Carlton Hurls, don't you?
I do. I love them both. Absolutely.
Oh. What else we got here?
When they play, I showed my colours earlier in the year though, and Phil, who loves my hatred of the Swans, was very disappointed that I buried really hard for the Swans all day because he knew it was only because they were playing Carlton and it was very disingenuous. But Carlton is down the bottom by a long way in my rankings, and so
Absolutely.
Anyone playing Carlton, I jump on the bandwagon every week.
Feel like I've loaded up on mids and forwards by missing a lot of the inconsistent guys, and it's left me McCarthy 23rd all year. McCarthy's been, Hurls calls it, it's a gift. We've had certain gifts throughout the year. We had Marich early on. We've had, for those that had Ned Long, he's been a gift. McCarthy is just a gift that keeps on giving. So it doesn't matter if he's a rookie. If he's pumping out 90s to 100s to 110s and he falls in your best 22, then doesn't matter what other people are saying. If he's in your best scorers, then fucking happy days. Take it for what it's worth.
If he looks like he's going, and this is where things can change quickly with a rookie, but if he looks in 3 weeks to be this guy all year and he keeps getting the 90s, then the people who have got 22 and McCarthy are actually at an advantage over the ones that have got 23 and McCarthy. Yeah. So I think it's worth just waiting to see what happens there, because what'll happen then, if you can use your last, let's say no one gets any injuries from here, you can use your last couple of trades on upgrading some of those underperformers in the team and keep McCarthy 23rd, and the others can't beat you with his 90s.
100%.
Yep.
That's all for the questions, Hurls. You can wrap us up, mate.
I think that's going to do us then for tonight. We did promise we went on a little bit earlier because we wanted to make sure that we got you out of here watching the State of Origin. So we're even going to just do something we never do on this podcast, and that's we're going to leave the cone of the week for the king of the cone of the week, Squid. So when he's back next week, we promise the next week's cone will be worth waiting for. We won't try to imitate the legend. We'll just let that through to the keeper. But like we always do in the Insight community, we want to end the podcast just with something a little more serious, and that is men's mental health. It is okay to not be okay, and it's not weak to speak. And if you are feeling like you need to reach out to anyone to have a conversation, you want to, whether that be you want to just shoot the breeze and talk footy or SuperCoach or life or anything, and you feel like that's going to be better for you than sitting alone, sitting in your house watching the footy by yourself, then all of our DMs are always open. Please send us a message. If you can't catch me, you'll catch Horse or Flanders or Deadly. All of us are definitely there to have a chat. So we do take that very seriously. I've never knocked back a DM. I know these blokes have never knocked back a DM either. Mm-hmm. So please reach out, and it is it is very important to us. But we might end the podcast there. Who's your tip for the State of Origin decider, boys, before we go?
Queenslander.
Yeah, I'm from Victoria, so Queensland.
Yeah, I'm from Victoria, living in WA, so Queensland as well. That's heart over head. So let's go the Queenslanders, and hopefully we can listen to all the New South Wales media sooking for a few hours later tonight. We'll see how we go. Absolutely. But that's been us for tonight, everyone. Thank you for joining in, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the State of Origin. We'll be back tomorrow night for the Panic Room with our man Deadly, and I don't know if Horse is with him tomorrow night. Might be Deadly and somebody else, but we'll see.
We've got a special guest.
We've got a guest. Oof.
Should we reveal it or not?
Nah.
We will. 6:30 tomorrow night. It's going to be Deadly. It's going to be Horse. And it's going to be the Skodfather. Live, 6:30 here on Insight. So get around the great man. He's wanting to come across and do an episode with us. such a lovely, lovely fella and does a lot in the SuperCoach community. So jump on 6:30 Insight tomorrow night. Get around the man, and we'll catch you all then, Hurls.
We will. See you all.